What if the person you were supposed to heal ended up breaking your heart instead? Claire never thought grief could be so quiet. It wasn't the loud kind, the one that made you cry in public or scream into pillows. It was a silent ache that filled her days, sitting beside her morning coffee and following her to bed at night. Ever since her husband Mark passed away a year ago, the house had felt empty, not just of his voice, but of purpose. She tried to stay busy, running her small wellness spa in a cozy part of Seattle. The walls were soft beige, the air always smelled of lavender oil, and the sound of water trickling from the indoor fountain usually calmed her. But lately, even the scent and sounds felt meaningless. Clients came and went, offering polite smiles. She smiled back, but inside she was tired of pretending to be okay. One cloudy afternoon, the doorbell chimed. Claire looked up and froze. It was Ethan, her stepson. Mark's son from his first marriage. He was 24 now, tall, polite, with kind blue eyes that carried the same warmth his father once had. They hadn't seen much of each other since the funeral. When he walked in, dripping rainwater from his jacket, it felt like a piece of Mark had stepped into the room again. "Hey, Claire," Ethan said quietly, setting his keys on the counter. "Sorry to drop by like this. I was just driving through and, I don't know, I wanted to see how you're doing." Claire's lips curved into a soft, tired smile. "You don't have to apologize for that. It's good to see you, Ethan. Really." They talked for a while, catching up about his new job at a marketing firm, his long hours, and how lonely the city could feel. He admitted he'd been struggling, restless, anxious, unable to sleep. "I guess I never really processed everything," he said, voice low. "Losing Dad, it's like I just kept moving forward without knowing where I was going." Something in his words touched her deeply. She knew that kind of pain. She lived with it every day. Without thinking, she said, "You should come by the spa sometime. A massage might help you relax." He laughed lightly. "Are you sure you're not just trying to get me to pay your rates?" "Family discount," she said with a wink. "Completely free." He agreed, and a few days later, he showed up right before closing time. Claire tried to keep it professional, lights dim, soft music, her therapist voice calm and neutral. But as she worked her hands over his shoulders, she couldn't help noticing how much he had changed. His back was strong, his breathing steady. He wasn't the nervous college kid she remembered. He was a man now, quiet and self-assured, but still carrying that same sadness. "You've been holding tension for a long time," she murmured. He nodded, his voice low. "I guess I've been carrying too much of everything." Something about his words hit her again. She wanted to tell him he wasn't alone, that she still thought of Mark every morning when she made 2 cups of coffee out of habit. But the words stayed trapped in her throat. The room felt warm, maybe too warm. The sound of rain outside filled the silence. Claire told herself to focus. On the motion, on her breathing, on the professionalism she prided herself on. But her thoughts drifted. She remembered the way Mark used to laugh, the way Ethan would sit at the dinner table cracking jokes that made them both smile. The memory hurt and healed her at the same time. When she finally finished, she told him softly, "All done. You should feel better now." Ethan sat up slowly, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," he said, his voice gentle but heavy with something she couldn't name. Their eyes met, just for a second, and Claire felt her heart skip. She quickly looked away. He smiled faintly. "You always had this calm way of making everything feel okay." "I wish that were true," she replied. "I can't even make myself feel okay." He looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Instead, he stood, pulled his jacket back on, and gave her a long look before walking toward the door. "You should take your own advice sometime," he said quietly. "You help everyone else, but you forget to take care of yourself." Then he left. When the door closed, Claire stood there for a long moment, her hands trembling slightly. She told herself it was exhaustion, nothing more. But when she turned off the spa lights and locked up, her reflection in the glass startled her. Her cheeks were flushed, her heart beat uneven. That night she couldn't sleep. She replayed the look in Ethan's eyes, the softness in his voice. She told herself she was imagining it, that grief made people see things that weren't there. But deep down, she knew something had changed between them, something fragile and dangerous. The next morning, she tried to bury it under work. She smiled at clients, organized her appointment book, and told herself it was all fine. But every time the door opened, her heart raced, half hoping, half dreading it might be him again. At lunch, she sat alone in the break room, stirring her soup absent-mindedly. Memories of Mark floated back. Their first trip to Vancouver, the way he used to tease her for always overworking. He had been the bridge between her and Ethan, the reason they'd ever become family. Without him, they were two people orbiting around the same grief, slowly being pulled toward each other. That evening, she got a text. "Ethan, hey, I slept better last night. Thanks again. That helped more than you think, Claire. I'm glad. You needed it. Ethan, mind if I come by again next week?" She stared at the screen for a long time. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed, deleted, then typed again. Finally, she sent, "Of course. Anytime." She set the phone down and leaned back, heart racing. Why did that simple message make her feel nervous? It was innocent. Completely innocent, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped onto a path she didn't fully understand. The rain started again outside, tapping against the windows. Claire stood there watching it, feeling that familiar ache in her chest. For the first time in months, she didn't feel entirely alone. But the warmth she felt scared her more than the loneliness ever had. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, the sound of rain echoing through her mind like a heartbeat. She could still hear his voice, the gentle gratitude in it, the way he'd said her name like it mattered. She turned over, pressing her pillow close. Her thoughts refused to quiet down. She told herself she was imagining everything, that grief had strange ways of playing tricks on the heart. But a small, undeniable truth whispered back from the corner of her mind. She wasn't imagining it, not entirely, and somewhere deep down she knew Ethan wasn't either. When her phone buzzed again past midnight, she hesitated before looking. It was another message, short, uncertain, and heavy with something unspoken. "Ethan, I can't stop thinking about earlier. Can we talk? When comfort turns into confusion, how do you know where to stop?" The message from Ethan replayed in Claire's mind all night. "Can we talk?" 3 simple words that carried 1,000 emotions. She didn't reply. Instead, she placed her phone face down and told herself she'd deal with it in the morning. But the truth was, she didn't sleep a minute. The next day, she walked through her spa like a ghost. Every sound felt too loud, every touch of memory too close. And then, just as she was about to close early, the door opened. Ethan stood there. Same soft eyes, same hesitant smile. "You didn't answer," he said quietly. "I didn't know what to say," she admitted. Her voice was steady, but her heart wasn't. He nodded. "I just wanted to thank you again. For being there. I didn't mean to make things weird." "It's okay," she said, forcing a smile. But it wasn't okay. Something had shifted between them. Invisible, but undeniable. A few days later, Ethan came back again. "My neck's been hurting," he said lightly. Claire hesitated. She wanted to say no, to set boundaries, to protect what was left of her peace. But instead, she nodded. "All right, just for a short session." The room felt smaller this time. The scent of lavender was thicker. Claire focused on the rhythm of her hands, the calm music, the way she'd done 100 times before. But her pulse betrayed her. Each breath felt too deep, each glance too long. Then, as she moved around the table, his hand brushed against hers, just for a second. But that second lingered like a spark that refused to fade. Neither of them said a word. The silence spoke enough. When it was over, Ethan sat up slowly. "You're the only one who makes me feel calm," he said softly. "It's strange," her voice trembled. "You shouldn't say that. Why?" he asked. "It's true." Claire didn't answer. She couldn't. She turned away, pretending to rearrange the towels, pretending she wasn't shaking. "You should probably go," she whispered. Ethan nodded, understanding more than she wanted him to. "Okay, but Claire, please don't shut me out again." After he left, she leaned against the counter, her hands pressed to her chest. What was happening to her? She wasn't this person. She was supposed to be wiser, stronger. But somehow, loneliness had blurred every line she once thought was clear. That night, She opened her old photo album, pictures of Mark smiling, of their wedding, of Ethan as a little boy holding his father's hand. She stared at them for a long time, tears filling her eyes. She closed the album and whispered to herself, "This isn't love. This is grief pretending to be love." Just then, her phone buzzed again. A new message from Ethan glowed on the screen. "Can I come by tomorrow? I don't just need a massage. I need to talk." One wrong moment can make you question everything you thought you were. It was raining again the next evening when Ethan arrived. The spa lights were soft, golden, almost dreamlike. Claire had told herself this meeting would bring clarity, a conversation, not another mistake. She brewed tea, hoping it would make things feel normal. But nothing about this felt normal anymore. Ethan looked nervous as he sat across from her. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," he said quietly. I don't know how to explain it. Being around you makes things hurt less." Claire stared at her cup. "Ethan, we both lost someone. That pain confuses us. It makes us reach for things we shouldn't." He nodded slowly. "Maybe, but what if it's not confusion? What if it's something real?" Her heart skipped. "Don't say that," she whispered. "You're just trying to fill the silence Mark left behind." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe I am, but when you talk to me, I feel like Dad's still here. Like everything he taught me still matters. You remind me of what home used to feel like." The words cut through her like glass, beautiful and painful at once. She stood, walking toward the treatment room just to calm her racing thoughts. "You came here to talk, not to make things harder," she said, her voice shaking. He followed quietly. "Then let's talk," he said, "because pretending nothing's happening isn't helping either of us." The sound of rain filled the silence again. Claire leaned against the counter, exhausted. "Ethan, you're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. You don't need to carry my sadness too." He took a step closer, eyes soft. "I'm not trying to carry your sadness, Claire. I'm trying to remind you you're still alive." Those words broke her. For the first time in months, she felt something that wasn't grief, and it terrified her. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Don't," she said, almost pleading. "You don't understand what this could destroy." "I do," he whispered. "But maybe it could also heal something." The air between them was thick, their silence louder than words. Claire wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Every part of her screamed that this was wrong, yet her heart ached for the comfort only Ethan seemed to bring. And then, just as the tension became unbearable, the sound of a key turning shattered the moment. The front door opened. "Mom? Ethan, are you here?" A familiar voice called out. Claire froze. Ethan's face went pale. It was Emily, Claire's daughter. Emily stepped inside, confusion spreading across her face as her eyes fell on them standing too close, too silent. "What's going on here?" she asked softly. And neither of them had an answer. Sometimes love doesn't destroy. It teaches you what it means to let go. Emily's voice echoed in the small spa room. The sound froze both Claire and Ethan in place. For a second, no one moved. Claire's heart thudded painfully as she turned toward her daughter. Emily stood by the door, confusion and disbelief on her face. "What's going on here?" she asked again, softer this time but sharper in tone. Claire tried to speak, but her throat felt dry. "Emily, it's not what you think," she whispered, stepping forward. "We were just talking." "Talking?" Emily's voice trembled. "Mom, do you even hear yourself?" Her eyes darted between Claire and Ethan, who stood silently, guilt written all over him. "Dad's been gone barely a year," Emily said, her voice cracking. "How could you?" Tears welled up in Claire's eyes. "Nothing happened," she said quickly, shaking her head. "I swear, Emily, nothing happened. We were just two people trying to find comfort in the same loss." Emily didn't answer. She just looked heartbroken, not angry, just hurt. That was worse. Without another word, she turned and walked out. The door closed softly, but it felt like a thunderclap in Claire's chest. For a moment, the room was completely silent, except for the soft hum of the heater. Claire sank to her knees, covering her face. "What have I done?" she whispered. Ethan knelt beside her. His voice was low, sincere. You didn't do anything wrong. We just got lost in the same pain. She looked up at him, eyes filled with regret. Then why does it feel like we both broke something? He didn't answer. He couldn't. The truth was too heavy for words. In the days that followed, everything changed. Emily didn't come home for a while. Ethan stopped visiting. The spa felt emptier than ever, but Claire knew this silence was one she deserved. She focused on her clients again, on healing others, maybe because she didn't know how to heal herself. Weeks passed before a letter arrived in the mail. The handwriting was familiar. Ethan. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Claire, it began. I left the city. I needed space to figure myself out. I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I want you to know I'm not angry. You helped me more than you'll ever know. You taught me that love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about stepping back. Claire pressed the letter to her heart and cried quietly. For the first time, the tears didn't feel like punishment. They felt like release. That evening, she closed the spa early and stood by the window, watching the sunset. The world outside looked calm again. Maybe forgiveness started this way. One breath, one moment at a time. As she turned off the lights, her phone buzzed softly. It was a new message from Emily. Just 3 words that made Claire's heart tremble again. Can we talk?